ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this very timely and interesting session themed Championing Customer Experience Journeys. The pressures of the pandemic have combined with some exciting new technologies to set the stage for a rapid evolution of the customer experience. The pandemic won't last forever, but the changes it has brought aren't going away. For example, it drove a faster move to digital that will not be reversed. As that happened, some CX improvements were made, but customer demand for better CX, coupled with the availability of new digital solutions, will take it much further. And no one wants to be left behind. Improved CX is required for every brand that wants to be competitive. Enterprise technology leaders and marketers need to build plans for a CX that is dramatically better than what was common just 24 months ago. Once the need to improve CX is accepted, the question becomes how to do it. Well, first you figure out what really matters and then start building the capability, launch and iterate as you go. In today's session, we have with us top enterprise technology experts who will help you deep dive into how the importance of CX has made businesses adopt digital tools and smart solutions at an aggressive pace, and also enable you to analyze new tools and techniques to enhance customer experience, leading to deep engagements. The session is divided into two parts. We will start with a fireside chat, followed by a panel discussion moderated by me. So without any more ado, let me introduce the speakers of the very exciting fireside chat. Ms. Suparna Mitra, Chief Executive Officer, Watches and Wearables Division, Titan Company Limited. Mr. Peter Quinlan, Vice President, Business Collaboration, Tata Communications. And moderating the conversation with them would be editorial consultant, Mr. Suresh Venkat. Over to you, Mr. Venkat.
On behalf of ET B2B, welcome to this discussion with Suparna Mitra, CEO of Watches and Wearables Division, Titan Company Limited, and Peter Quinlan, Vice President, Business Collaboration, Tata Communications. Now, the one thing that's common to every single company in the world is customers. Companies invest huge amounts of time, money, and resources into acquiring, understanding, and delighting their customers. Today, I'm going to talk to Suparna and Peter about championing the customer experience journey. Suparna, first question to you. Now, a number of people can own the customer experience journey in an organization. How important is the CEO's involvement directly in the process?
It is very important because the starting point of any revenue generation of any corporation is from the fact that there is a customer. And how well that customer is served, engaged, and delighted is the root, the source of continuing business and profits and revenues for any corporation. So while like we are in Titan, we are a B2C company and we have our brands that are selling, and we have many different brands and many different channels. We have our own stores, we sell through multi-brand stores, we sell through e-commerce. But finally, when the customer buys something from a Titan company, any product, the expectation is that Titan company will back up this purchase or this transaction and will provide me all of the things that I think is necessary. So customer journeys themselves have become complex as new things have come up in businesses. With the advent of technology, there are a lot of diverse and divergent ways in which customers reach out. Earlier, also the customer interaction point used to be more one way, which was the corporation would talk to the customer. Now, the customer equally talks back to the corporation, either directly or through social media. And in this maze of where customers search for and transact either online or in store, and the number of combinations and permutations of how that customer transaction actually happens is it could be many different types of combinations. Therefore, I think while each person in the organization is trying to complete that transaction, at a global level, the CEO owns all the customers, and that's how it is. Like today on Twitter, I get direct customer complaints if something has not been addressed, and I'm expected to address them and to get them, resolved to their satisfaction. So it has always been that a CEO is responsible for customers. I think with technology and with time, this has become much more practical. I mean, it actually happens that people just reach out and they talk to you both about good experiences and bad experiences. And overall, as I said, since the entire fountain of revenue and profits are customers, I suppose it is the CEO's responsibility to be in touch with and connected to customers.
Peter, how have your customers evolved in the last 2 years?
The last 2 years have been far from a normal period, and the change has been quite dramatic with our customers. I think that probably the simplest way to sum it up with, in their thinking about how they interact both within the company, employee collaboration, as well as with their customers and their approach to technology, it's really been a shift of, why, from a position of why to a position of, why not, or how fast. And by that, I mean, particularly inside the enterprise, you saw, traditional siloed collaboration technologies for telephony, video conferencing, meeting services, all of those sorts of things. Everyone knew they were moving to the cloud. Everyone knew they were adopting them, but it was somewhat, if not optional, at least the timeline was at the company's discretion. With the pandemic and all the employees working from home and every single meeting now being delivered from the cloud on a collaboration technology of some sort, suddenly all those legacy technologies, which were no longer adequate, those are, we've moved to the cloud. And all these questions about, will my employees embrace the technology? Will people be able to collaborate this way? Those were decided within 48 hours because people just had to get on with it. Necessity is the mother of invention, and people just did it, right? So now, in somewhat of a post-pandemic world, you see companies coming back to office and saying, well, it's not going to be the same as it was. Now that our minds have been expanded, they won't go back to the original shape, right? So now it's sort of like, what's the new normal going to look like? And how do we rework our office space and our work from home policies and the need to come to the office at all, and use technology to facilitate that? And if you think about the relationships with customers, who at the end of the day, those employees on the one hand, the same people and their families are the types of people who are your customers, the whole interaction with them also changed. And if you think about contact center technology, which, in many industries was viewed as, a support function or a cost center, when suddenly everything shifted to a primarily digital engagement model, very often because your customer could not come to a store, right? You didn't have alternative channels. Your entire engagement with that customer is now via a digital channel. The real shift has been, well, this now is, my digital channel is not one of many. My digital channel is my primary engagement model. And it's not a reflection of my brand anymore. It is my brand, because there isn't a store that the customer's comparing it to. This is the way he interacts. And that spans the entire life cycle from, awareness, consideration, purchasing, delivery, support. That whole life cycle needs to be rethought from the perspective of a customer whose behavior has now been dramatically changed. And, as Suparna said, his demand for access to the company, his demand to be listened to, responsiveness, and the way he wants to be engaged with has evolved dramatically. And lest we forget, his switching cost is also reduced dramatically. It's very easy to move from channel to channel, right? To drop a brand, and you may never know, right? You would only see it as, the downloads on your app or the usage on an app. So the consumer behavior has changed dramatically. And so the companies that we work with to enable that customer interaction through what was traditionally a contact center have really shifted to become address the customer needs in a much broader spectrum of ways, and thinking much more holistically about the life cycle and how technology can support that.
So, Butler, let me flip this around to you a little bit. So it's obvious from what you and Peter are saying about the importance of customer and the importance of involvement of top leadership in the customer experience. In your experience, what holds CEOs back from being more directly involved with their customer experience teams?
I think it's the understanding that that of all the business processes that are laid out in an organization, and there are specific people who are in charge of that, they're accountable for that. And all of these people are then roll up to me. And so I somehow am not directly accountable for the customer. I think it's a false sense that all these layers are, if they do what they are supposed to do, then why should I bother with customers? I think that's a fallacy. And I think there are companies where, the head of the company does they even carry badges or designations, stating that they are a customer representative or somebody who is, entrusted with dealing with customers. So I think that's one. I think typically we all start off in dealing with customers directly, and then as one moves up, we kind of busy ourselves with other things. But it does boil down to whether whether you're acquiring new customers, whether you're retaining them, whether they are advocating for you. Those are the three things, acquisition, retention, getting more value out of the customer over the customer's life cycle, as well as are your customers happy enough, delighted enough to actually recommend you, and that's creating word of mouth. So I think it's a false sense that all the layers in between are doing the work, and somehow that is not your work anymore. But it is absolutely the
Private sector bureaucracy then.
Yeah.
Peter, you spoke about how the customer has transformed over the last 1 year. Going forward, how do you see technology playing a crucial role in enterprises like Titan in enabling their customer transformation journey?
Well, I think technology plays a huge role, but I think if you start, we tend to encourage our customers, we're a B2B company, and our customers tend to be organizations that are trying to enable or transform a customer or an employee experience through use of collaboration technology. But we try not to start with technology, but rather to really start outside in and look at what is the customer experience you're trying to drive, or what are the results that you're trying to get, and how can technology be an enabler of that. And so we can't lose sight of the very personal and very human metrics that we can put numbers to them and can measure them, but at the end of the day, it's about people and how well they can get their jobs or achieve a commercial objective, and get their jobs done. And so we try to start outside in, as close to the customer as possible, or as close to the employee experience that we're trying to get to as possible. And we try to really think about, technology. There's all sorts of varieties of technology and different ways to do that, but really think about how do we measure success in terms of business outcomes, and things that matter most to the customer and to the employees. And if we can do that, and if we can have a conversation with the customer about that, then the selection of technology and how and where and how you go about implementing it, those can be defined in a way that makes much more sense for the business. Last thing I would say is we found that a very agile approach tends to be best, whereas we used to do very long projects with lots of detailed scoping up front and lots of very well designed and thought out and planned implementation. Not to say we don't design and plan, but the speed at which you do that and try to get experience in the market very quickly has just accelerated dramatically. And two reasons for that. One is because with the advent of cloud, the options and the ability to experiment, to test, and to fail fast. If you're going to fail, those options are much more available right now than at any other time. And secondly, the odds of me being able to predict what customers want or employees want a year from now, I have no crystal ball. I don't know anyone who does. If you do, please refer them and we'll give them a job. But basically the odds of getting it right if you're a year out from actual delivery is very, very small. And so the quicker you can get things into market and listen to your customer and listen to your employees and adapt and change and modify the experience as quickly as you can in an agile way. And by agile, I simply mean trial and error and building upon what you've already done and responding to the data that you get back and the signals you get back from your customer. So it's a very different approach to the way that you implement technology as opposed to a long drawn out big bang into a incrementalist or agile approach where you get into the market quickly and fail fast and learn.
Thank you. Moving from technology back to Suparna. Now, Suparna Titan is an extraordinarily successful company. Yeah, but not being bound to what worked in the past is an essential part for unlocking innovation in the future. As CEO, how do you avoid getting caught up with past success and past glory?
I think the consumer leads us. Consumers are moving very fast, and we are all consumers ourselves. And we find that the way we look at the world, the way we look at brands, the way we search for brands, the way we transact, the way we engage, everything has changed. So I'll give you an example. Of course, there are extraordinary events like COVID, which has triggered a lot of change and shown to us that many things that we had been doing for 30 plus years, there are newer, faster, sometimes cheaper. It's definitely more agile ways of doing the same. And people have just, consumer behavior is often a very good starting point for organizational change. So I'll give you a couple of examples. One is that we know that almost all consumers, 90% plus consumers, irrespective of where they finally buy the product, do search online. The online search is often the first step. And we know that consumers search in a certain way. And they like, for example, they like that thing where you say that if you have liked this, you will also like this. Or ratings and reviews. I don't think anybody buys anything, whether it's a small thing like a household item, a mop in the house, to a TV or a watch or anything without checking on ratings and reviews. So the earlier way of thinking of marketing was that we'll create the 30-second or the 60-second. Actually, you start with the 60th-second television commercial. Then you edit it and you make 30-seconders and 20-seconders and you put it on TV. TV still remains, but essentially the point is that people are searching online and ratings and reviews are generated by actual consumers. And so that is, ratings and reviews are the new advertising. It's not like the advertising has gone away, not at all. And in fact, advertising itself has morphed, social media, certainly all kinds of digital advertising, even things like influencer marketing. These are all things that have become the norm because that's what consumers want. So honestly, if consumers didn't want it and they didn't like it and they didn't see any value, it wouldn't work. It's working, it's getting bigger and bigger because that's consumers are getting value out of it. So there are many, many things in which we have reimagined our business processes because consumers want it that way. The rapid use of technology and especially digital technology, that rapid use of the extraordinary adoption of smartphones, and I think even things like 4G and now 5G, all these actually contribute to making the customer experience very different from, say, 3-4 years back.
So, Suparna, the customer clearly is changing rapidly and adapting to new environments. How difficult is it for CEOs to challenge their fundamental assumptions and to consider these business model transformations? Is it really tough?
Yes, there is often some amount of inertia and resistance simply because, we've done it for so many years. This is the way we do things here. These are things that one does encounter. But I also see that once pointed out that this is a new way of doing things. These are new technologies that are available. These are new ways in which, even things like data, customer data. And I'll give you another example. We have a very large loyalty program called Encircle, and there are more than 20 million people. So we have a certain way of capturing the data. The data is available for our store staff. But today, due to technology, we are trying to get to a place where there is a single view of the customer. So if a customer who has, say, earlier bought in a Tanishq store is walking into a Titan store, a watch store, and the customer's phone number or Encircle number is available, the store staff in the watch store can actually connect back to their previous purchases. It has information on, for example, their birthday, upcoming birthdays or anniversaries, or information that allows them to have a more considered approach to the customer as opposed to a blind approach. A blind approach is somebody walks into the store and you're like, ma'am, what do you want? What are you looking for? What is your price range? If I have a considered view of the customer and I know this person has bought a Tanishq, bangle, which is a certain type of bangle or a certain value of bangle, I know, or has previously bought a watch, and that information is available, I know that the anniversary is coming up, you can have a much better informed and a much more effective conversation with the customer. So the point of giving this example is that initially the store staff is like, this is too much work, this is different. What do I do with it? I have to log into this, I have to log into that. But once they start seeing the magic that, their conversion is going up, their conversations are becoming more fruitful, now we don't have to actually, measure whether they're logging in. They're logging in because it's working for them. In the beginning, it was about adoption. We were actually measuring how many were logging into that system. But now we don't, because that's their tool. That's their sales tool. So yes, initially there is sometimes some resistance, but I think people see the magic themselves, and then they become champions and endorsers of the new way of working.
Suparna, do you personally spend a lot of time in the stores yourself?
I spend a lot of time in stores. I spend a lot of time on Instagram, and it's not trivial. My customers are on Instagram. I need to see what is the new experience. And it is amazing, Suresh. There are small brands, digitally native brands, who come up with the most extraordinary customer hooks. And, it's like you get hooked to it and then you get pulled in. There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from a lot of people who are doing a lot of innovations. And it's good to remain humble and to constantly learn from both, I would say, customer and customer behavior, as well as a lot of new age digital born type of companies and brands that are doing a fantastic job. I do want to add one thing, is that because we are a brick and mortar company that is now in the process of becoming phygital, not so much, it will never be completely digital. We have a huge brick and mortar footprint, and we are good for it, and we're actually expanding it because it works. What works is the combination of the physical and the digital. So I think, yes, spending time in stores, whether our own stores or whether multi-brand stores, departmental stores, is something that we all do. I think we spend huge amounts of time looking at the stores, listening to customers, listening to our store staff. There is much to be gleaned from those observations and then mapped back to the work we do.
Peter, coming back to you, when you implement a new technology, how do you define the success of this vis-a-vis delivering customer experience to your end customers?
As I mentioned earlier, we tend to look at the business outcomes that are most relevant to the business. And if you think it's very different from the traditional things we used to do in the technology space around, service levels, delivery time and cost. Those are still there, but they tend to be secondary to business outcomes. And it could be conversion, it could be things, percentage of self-service. It could be success rates as measured, in various ways. One transaction to close, or one interaction, or the numbers of touches that you have to do with the customer to achieve a particular outcome. It would vary by industry, but I guess the common denominator would be they're all business driven. They're all defined by business outcomes now, and it's much more a conversation around how does the technology enable that, rather than technology per se.
So, Padma, you spoke about social media a little while ago. So in today's world of this social media megaphone amplification, every company's reputation is as good as the experience delivered to the average customer. What's your formula for winning over the average customer, as opposed to the big ticket, say, Titan fan customer?
It's finally a number game, right? So, for example, in the watches and wearables division, we serve upwards of 14, 15 million customers. And you're right. Sometimes it's easier to say that, I will serve the top 50,000, 100,000, maybe 500,000 customers at a certain level of excellence. But it does get very hard as you're trying to serve everyone in a consistent and trying to deliver a customer experience which is equally good. Or let's put it this way, the minimum standard is at a certain level. It is also hard when about more than 50% of our business actually comes from multi-brand environments, where the owner of the business is somebody else and who's a business partner, whether it's a multi-brand mom and pop store owner, or a large format store, a departmental store owner like a Shoppers Stop or Lifestyle, etc., or for that matter, a multi-brand e-commerce marketplace format like Amazon or Flipkart. So your brand is yours, the customer is there, but the ability to craft and curate and deliver a consistent experience to every one of those 15, 16 million people is very hard. There are many angles, there are many aspects of the customer experience, starting from what information they seek, how's that information delivered, to the physical merchandise that is present, the quality of the merchandise, the quantity of the merchandise, the presentation of the merchandise, the after-sales service. So it is a mind-boggling, task in terms of being able to deliver that consistent experience. But there are some things that we do work on and that we do feel add to that. One is, of course, the product itself, the packaging, the associated parts of that product, the information, the advertising, the content, all of that is, of course, created and controlled by us. A lot of work goes in visual merchandising and ensuring the right merchandise is there in the right place and then visually presented in an appealing manner. And sometimes we also have to invest in a partner and say, okay, we need to together work to make this better. And it is, it's different for different types of partners, especially multi-brand partners, and ensuring that the experience is good. By and large, one of the things that does help in ensuring a consistent brand experience is actually the role of people. And so therefore the training and the time spent in getting the people who are finally going to talk to customers, to understand the product, to be able to communicate and give a coherent explanation of the product. We spend a lot of time, effort, and money, and this we do across channels. Even in multi-brand channels, we spend a lot of time training the people who are really talking to customers. So these are some of the ways in which we do it, but it is a hard task, and we do measure how good that customer experience is at the time of purchase. Sometimes we also measure it after a period of time. And there are there are metrics like NPS, etc., which help. And we are constantly using those metrics in our goals and trying to improve that.
Thanks, Suparna. Peter, back to you. Now, Tata Communications, your company, provides technologies like omnichannel customer experience platforms and cloud contact centers. And all this is to enhance customer engagement and improve employee collaboration, like you told us about. Tell us a little bit about how you help enterprises enhance lifetime customer value, at the same time reducing cost of acquisition.
Well, so to touch on some of the themes from your earlier questions, one of the things that the available technology does today is allow you to really personalize experiences at scale. And by that, I mean through, application of artificial intelligence, machine learning, automation, enabling your people at that moment of truth when you're trying to support a customer or to sell to a customer with the relevant information, with the context, or empowering every engagement that you have with the customer with information about what his objective is and making it simpler for him to get to the outcome that he wants by taking a lot of different information, which might come from social media, might come from past interactions with the customer, might come from, as Suparna said, information derived from past transactions and loyalty programs. But being able to bring that to bear at that moment of truth when you actually have to deliver that service, that's what the technology really enables. And so there's myriad opportunities to enhance that life cycle or that lifetime value of the customer and to delight the customer at various points along that journey. And the better you can get at harnessing that very personalized information and, as I say, bringing it to bear at the right moment and providing the right context for your transaction, the better the experience may be. And in the digital world, a lot of that may end up being things that actually also reduce cost. So if you think about automation, today, pretty much everybody is going to interact with you through an app on the phone or through a browser. If they can get what they want more quickly in a self-serve model, very often many customers will view that as the desired outcome. They don't want to call you up and explain their situation. They don't want to go through, punching buttons on an IVR to try to get to the right agent and talk to if they can get it done on their own, that's best for everybody because it's, the most rapid and best outcome for the customer, as well as the best outcome for the company in terms of the time and the resources spent to serve. So a lot of times the objective of reducing cost and improving customer experience coincide in the new digital world. But I think the last point would be, and I'd pick up on something Suparna said, the people are hugely important. And all this technology doesn't replace them, it empowers them. It empowers them with better information, better context, better ability to get things done more quickly and more directly, all in the service of your customer. And so as we think about how we measure it and what we do, and it really does, as you say, it help to take that life cycle approach and say, okay, well, what are the touch points that we've got? And then how do we leverage technology to improve on each and every one of those? And the metrics do change over time as you hammer down one area. There'll be other things that you need to focus on as you move. And the ways that your customers engage, a few years ago, it might have been Facebook, now it may be Instagram, I don't know where Pinterest is nowadays. But again, these are all things that you have to keep up with and somehow stitch together into a holistic, what we define as a customer experience, but that's a multifaceted thing that you have to continue to hone and to polish as you go. The good news, as I say, is, with the technology available today, there's myriad opportunities to go do that in many, many different ways. So the trick is really figuring out how to measure and how to focus the outcomes that are most relevant to your customer.
Thanks, Peter.
I'd just like to add one thing to what Peter said. I totally agree that there are a whole section of customers who don't want to be served the way earlier generation was. So one of these learnings we kind of gleaned, and we did a reverse experiment, which is that in our stores, where there are store staff, we've actually put QR codes because people are used to scanning a QR code and getting the information. And it's an option. If you want to reach out to a human being, there are very well-trained staff. But if you'd rather do it yourself and you want to know more about a particular watch and the collection, there's a QR code, you scan it, all the information is there. And that allows you to, if that's what, that's what you're more comfortable with, that's what works for you, then that's also there. So it's very interesting that while on the one hand, we try to kind of mimic a physical experience in a digital platform, which is try and get the touch and feel as much as we can through, try on and various kinds of video shopping, many different ways in which you can kind of replicate the in-store experience online. It's interesting that the reverse is also true, because people are spending so much time online. They're trying to replicate some of those habits. I don't know if how many of you've done. There is a time when little kids, because they've never been exposed to anything other than touch, they look at non-digital surfaces and they try to zoom in and zoom out, because that's what they think the world is about. You can touch a surface and zoom in or zoom out. So it's a bit like that, because our brains get wired to the possibilities on digital.
Suparna, like Peter said a little while ago, technology can do a lot, but technology can only do so much. Now, delivering end-to-end customer service obviously requires complex coordination across divisions of the company, and you spoke of some of those earlier. As CEO, how do you approach the challenge of these handoffs between divisions to make sure that the customer doesn't get pissed off, doesn't get dropped anywhere along this journey?
Yeah, that also is one of those organizational hierarchy issues. It happens sometimes because even in our own stores, in our exclusive brand outlets, there are people who are the staff who are trained to sell, and then there are staff who are trained to service watches. And earlier, these two were seen as separate. And in the last few years, we have realized that they should be seen as part of a team. There are times when somebody's coming in to service a watch and actually is like, okay, I might as well buy a new one. And there are times when the reverse happens. Somebody's come to buy a watch and they suddenly remember about watches that need to be serviced. So both ways happens. I think the part that needs a lot of coordination to make sure that there are no balls dropped in the air is between physical and digital. And we have, for example, people who come on to our website, there is a separate team, which is an on-ground team. And that if they find that, there are certain cues in which they know that this transaction is not going to happen, they kind of, either a chatbot or a real person kind of comes in and then says, can I help you? And if the person does express, the customer is actually expressing interest, they can kind of take them and delve into it further. If they're more comfortable going to a store, they can suggest the nearby store. So it's I think, and then, so what happens is that a bunch of digital customers actually go and complete the transaction in store. The reverse also happens. There are customers who come into a store and they want something, or they've actually searched online and they're saying, where is this? And for whatever reason that store doesn't have. And then we actually help that customer make an online transaction and the product will be shipped to your home. So the online offline is that merging point is something I think which is relatively new. It's not that it doesn't work, but I think there is more that can be done there in terms of a more seamless transfer of the customer, so that the customer doesn't feel any different.
And Peter, did you want to weigh in on that as well? I saw you raising your hand.
Sure. No, I was actually muting with my dog in the background, but I would add, indeed, the rare pleasures. But he'll be upset when I leave. But I would say, with the technology available today, there are a lot of opportunities for real-time interaction or enhancing things in real time. So using speech analytics to listen to conversations and to provide prompts to the salesperson or the service person as to what's most effective in this type of transaction. Also setting up transactions or potential opportunities for upselling or enhancing the service based on contextual information, either about the individual customer or about profiles of customers that you can extrapolate to create most likely scenarios, and being able to feed those into the contact center agent or even to a retail agent in real time, as Suparna has said, has a chance to dramatically impact their metrics. And once people realize that, they kind of get addicted to it, right? But think about it for a moment. How many times have you gone to buy an expensive TV and you've hoped that the guy you met last time was at the store because he was the good guy, right? He's the one. Or in a bank, you want to do a particular type of loan or particular type of transaction, but the person who does those sorts of things may not be in the branch. What if you could take the best person for each type of transaction and extrapolate their knowledge and make it available to everybody, but then only direct it at the customers to where it's most relevant? That sets up huge opportunities for leveraging the expertise that you've got, as well as making sure the customers get the best experience possible for your organization to deliver every single time. And that can be done whether it's an in-store experience, whether that's in a contact center, whether it's on a website. But the opportunities for applying that, yes, to get to that level, you have to really do some soul searching and figure out, well, what does your organization know and how do you stitch that together? And so we help organizations to do that. But once you get the virtuous circle going, then it really does start to build upon itself, both with people adopting and using it and leveraging it, but also learning upon itself and driving a cycle of continuous improvement.
And that brings us to the end of this discussion on championing the customer experience journey. Plenty of insights there from both Suparna and Peter. So Suparna Mitra of the Titan Company and Peter Quinlan of Tata Communications, thank you for being with us on ET B2B.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this topical panel discussion on championing customer experience journeys. With the global crisis caused by COVID-19, enterprises shifted their focus on ensuring employee safety, business continuity, and employee productivity. And we saw the emergence of new yardstick for customer experience. Customer engagements are becoming digital at a rapid pace too. To keep pace with the shift in customer behavior, enterprises launched new digital initiatives, first to survive and later to leverage new opportunities. However, in lots of cases, such efforts often fail to deliver a customer experience that is integrated, consistent, and seamless. In this panel discussion, we have today with us senior enterprise technology experts who will throw light on the needs of customers in this new digital world, how the challenges in meeting these new needs can be addressed, and the building blocks to create new digital customer experiences. So without any more delay, please join me in welcoming our panelists in alphabetical order: Mr. Girish Hadkar, CIO Tata Realty; Mr. Krishnan Venkateswaran, Chief Digital and Chief Information Officer Titan; Mr. Nishant Srivastava, GM and Global Head, Center of Excellence for Unified Communications and Collaboration at Tata Communications; Mr. Vinod Bhatt, CIO Vistara; and Mr. Vipin Gupta, CIO Starbucks. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Let me open up the session with Mr. Girish Hadkar. Mr. Girish, the global crisis caused by COVID-19 saw the emergence of a new yardstick, as I just mentioned, for customer experience. How drastically has the approach to customer interactions changed for your organization? What key pieces of customer experience puzzle have you figured out during this time, year and a half? Your thoughts, sir.
Perfect. And just a background. So as people would be aware, we are from the real estate business, the residential and the commercial spaces. And like you said, it's gone a complete sea change. We had an adage: unless and until site visit happens, the sale is not going to happen. And even in site visit, you had a person who used to come first alone, maybe with a friend, and then if he found it interesting, then he would come with his family. So the lead qualification used to happen that way. And we knew that, okay, now that he has come with his family, he obviously come with the check and sign it. And that is the way things were happening. And then pandemic struck, and we have all seen, I mean, the way real estate has been doing business, and we have been selling online, and not only us, a lot of players have been selling online. And to enable that, so what are the key things? I mean, what did we have, what we did not have earlier, which we have now? So clearly, 2-3 things that we did. The first and the foremost thing was a robust CRM implementation. I mean, we had CRM in bits and pieces, but we implemented Salesforce, the Service Cloud, the Sales Cloud, and the Marketing Cloud also. So the complete end-to-end digital customer life cycle is now available on our CRM. Now that's the first part. The second part which came in obviously are the conversational platforms. And we got in the chatbots, started with answering the FAQs. That's what we did. And slowly and gradually we are getting into a more, and we want to get into a more contextual and more you can say involved communication or discussion with the customer. So that's the second part. The third part that came in was the customer experience tools. I will not call it a platform, but then we got in the virtual reality piece came in, and we created those walkthroughs which you can have it done from your laptop as well, and also the devices. So these were the things that came in. And finally, analytics. I mean, all of this, the data that came in, we said, okay, so we got onto even Tata Communications is our solution provider there. So we are on the Azure stack. We are subscribed to the complete Azure stack for analytics, and we have the data warehouse there, and we are using the AIML components, so everything. And that's how we had started building this. So I think these are the pieces which came in, and that's how. And I know with COVID coming in, if I imagine that if it had not happened, how much time would I have needed to convince people to give me that money? And now it has come in. And
True.
partners also came up with a lot of solutions of the pay-per-use model. And Tata Communications also came up with so many new features and the ways of doing business. So I think the entire ecosystem worked to make it available and facilitate for us. I think that's a very positive thing that happened.
Sure. Definitely, Mr. Girish, like you said, contextual information, CRM analytics, that's the way forward, definitely. Coming to Mr. Gupta. Mr. Gupta, retail was one of the hardest hit because of the pandemic. And obviously, I'll come to Mr. Vinod, but because his vertical was also really badly hit. But first to you, what kind of changes are you bringing about in your business model to align with this new reality?
So to me, I think, Yash, there are two fundamental shift. I think that what we have seen, at least from a Starbucks standpoint, and we are now investing in the capabilities to be able to completely leverage those nuances that are, or the change that we have seen. I think one, pre-COVID, post-COVID, I think the loyalty, though it has always been a very core element of our business, the loyalty program that we have, and it's one of the industry leading ones. We want to continuously invest more and more into that, and not only limited to loyalty, but then how do we then capture really more and more insights about the customer, and then really make their experiences very contextualized and personalized. Now, I know it may sound very cliche because everybody talks about that, but I think it is actually means a lot to us because people aspire, the loyalty program, as I said, is very aspirational. So how do we really make sure that we give the right offers to right customers at the right time? The gratification actually happens at the right time and in a very fast-paced manner. So then underlying the data infrastructure, the POS, the contextual data, capturing all that, how does that happen? I think that is something that we are investing in. The other element that has come up, post-COVID is that, as you may be aware, that Starbucks is largely a dine-in brand, right? Most of the prior to COVID, I would say delivery numbers were very, very, very low. And when the COVID struck, obviously, if we couldn't get the customers into a restaurant, so we have to reach out to them. And then that actually, not only from technology point of view, but a lot of changes have to be done around packaging. I don't know if anybody on this call has actually tried Starbucks delivery, but actually the packaging it comes to, it is actually fairly, fairly unique, and we have to develop that in a very, very, agile manner. So all that is done, but from a technology standpoint, now we are really investing in having I would not use the word omni-channel, because in food tech, omni-channel doesn't really work, but rather a multi-channel, right? So we are available at all the avenues where the customer is, whether it's our own app, whether it's Zomato, whether it's Swiggy, whether it's WhatsApp, but everywhere we have to be present, and then we are able to deliver that experience in a very integrated and a seamless manner across channels, right? You are able to see exactly the same product on Zomato, what you're able to see on our app. Then you are able to get that a payment experience and everything which is there. So that enabling the multi-channel capability where we are able to reach out to the customer at all, where the customer is. That is the second capability that we're bringing in, and those are I would say the two major shifts that we're doing in our business: data analytics and multi-channel capability.
Wonderful, wonderful, Mr. Gupta. Coming to Mr. Krishnan now, sir, the effect the pandemic had on the consumer psyche and the business as well is very apparent. Some of the changes in customer behavior seem to be an irreversible trend, forcing companies more than others and more than ever before to realign themselves to the new normal. How are you realigning to this new world order?
Our journey had actually started in 2018 when we made our first substantial investment in what I may call digital transformation. But it was essentially about Titan becoming an omni company from an organization which was primarily retail, right? Even today, we are opening stores and our national network is across 2000. But what we also have is this omni fabric, which covers all digital touchpoints. So if you go to the website, you can start a live chat, and you can graduate that into a multi-location call in which our colleagues in the store will actually be physically demonstrating jewelry. Wow. And the key account manager, who would be a central contact center person, would be there all through. And because of the CRM, we are able to keep track of the customer conversations and who has spoken with her last, right? So we're able to maintain the continuity that is so important, while at the same time being able to leverage the store knowledge of our products and obviously the availability of the products themselves, right? If you take jewelry and watches, it is impossible for one central location to have a portfolio for demo, right? And so therefore our colleagues have had to learn how to digitally present a product and how does it look on a screen versus showcasing it face to face across a counter. It's very different, right? And so thousands of our colleagues had to understand that. But I can say that customers are enjoying the hybrid experience now. We did experience a very welcome rush of customers into the stores during the festival season. So I think we can hope and pray that we have seen the worst and the worst is far behind us. Having expressed that hope, the hybrid mode is there to stay. And we actually see this as an opportunity to reach out to customers who otherwise will not be able to visit a Titan store, especially diaspora. And we are getting calls from Africa, US, Europe, and we are able to serve them digitally, which is something very new and welcome. And as far as technologies, Vipin has mentioned them, and I think all of us know them, right? As consumers and as professionals, I will not list them. But integration obviously is the key, so that the journey is mapped, information is not lost. And so therefore, while the customer is enjoying the experience, we also have the benefit of the analytics, both.
Sure. Great. So lots of innovative stories there. Mr. Bhatt, what insights have you gained into customer experience because of the pandemic?
Okay, first of all, thank you for having me, and it is great to be part of this panel discussion. See, I think from airlines perspective, last 18 months have been quite different, because our whole ecosystem, which includes the airports, the pre-flight, during flight, post-flight experience. So all that has got impacted or changed. So the customer who has got a lot more touchless experiences now, so they don't want to obviously use any other means. So, but key challenge for us was how to give the consistent experience. If the person has booked through the mobile and he is basically making any changes on the any other smart device, and also then contacting the call center contacting the agents. So how do you give their consistent experience? Particularly, I think we've been talked about the loyal customers, because the loyalty programs we have. So how do we treat the customers differently at that time also? So I think that has been the journey we have been through, and important was how to connect the dots behind the scenes. So I think that was a big, I would say, big journey which we are still embarking on, still making it better and better. Because if we do not understand customer, you will not be able to service. And no matter what you do, the whole thing gets impacted. If you take the whole marketing, whole product offerings, what are you going to do if you don't know the customers better? I think a lot of that our focus was making sure that we have a good data strategy, we have a good analytics strategy, we have a good multi-channel strategy, and we have a good AI strategy on top of it, which will help us to make some decisions. And I'm not talking about automation, I'm not talking about that we are on cloud, that is given now days, but it was more about how do you service the customer better or even elevate the customer experience to the next level. And we don't believe that we are going to go back to pre-COVID or whatever that was. I think it is going to stay. This is the new norm. We have accepted it. Only thing is volumes will go up. It should go up. And the good news is that I think we are seeing that good volumes moving on. But I would say a lot more digital technologies helping us more and making it seamless to the end customer. See, you look at one more aspect which I want to throw here is from technology point of view, you have got biometric based solutions coming up in airline industry where you don't need a boarding pass soon. Your face will be the boarding pass. And we are talking about 5G hitting the airports, and where you can actually on other areas where you can do a lot more computation, lot more processing, lot more integration on the fly, which is far you're talking about gigabytes per second. So I think that is coming up very exciting times, and I feel that even during the flight also there is in-flight entertainment. You can download your data very quickly. I think that's also going to give us a lot more better experience to our customers.
Great, Mr. Bhatt. So everybody's talked about artificial intelligence, personalization, omnichannel, and we're going to discuss all these in detail as we move along. But let me come to Nishant now. Nishant, I'm sure you would be interacting with lots of technology leaders in your day-to-day work. What do you hear from them? What kind of changes are they bringing about in their business models aligning to this new normal?
Yeah, good question. So Yash, and thank you for having me here along with the other panelists. So the thing is not very different that is being just spoken about, right? Everyone focused on their own end customer experience, what it should be going forward in the new normal, and then adopting quickly, right? All those changes, how customer can easily get onto them. Girish initially mentioned they are into real estate, and then the entire customer experience, right from a customer coming into their ways has gone online, and making them available, maybe the models of the entire property going online, right? Vipin also mentioned the same thing, invested on data analytics and more touch points on the customer customer perspective. So our role as an enabler would have been to enable each and everything. Now everything can be done, right? Technology, as it's like changing every 3 months. So we have to adapt to that, and then we also have to work with our customers, our enterprises, so that they can be well enabled to serve their end customers by improving on the customer experience journeys, by enabling more and more channels, more and more touch points, facilitating an online method of a pull sell rather than having a push sell. And all of these platforms, and within even everyone belongs to Tata Group here. So we have experience centers. We have even the solution given to Tata Motors and Chroma very recently for having an online customer demos. Then sale can happen subsequently. So these all things being enabled, being developed as a product, as a service by us in these 1.5 years. And obviously that has come from our customer. As a customer drives enablers, right? That's the thing. So these enterprise like Vipin, Girish, Krishnan, everyone mentioned, these all has been the origination of the problem, and then they took a decision because of their customers. They need it, right? So similar to that, now our customers are these enterprises, so they need this, and hence we were forced to enable them. So that's what has happened, and that's how we have come up with our platforms, with our services, to come up with these new technologies, eliminating any dependency on the on-premise. Nobody wants it now, especially when you get into lockdown situation, you lose access to Office and everything what is inside Office. So go 100% cloud. Analyze your customers, obviously, like how they are analyzing their end customers. We are also analyzing them, what they would really want to go after, what would really help them, what will really empower them, and bring up more and more such services like this, like both in unified communications and collaboration domain, like for employee experience as well as their end customer experience.
Sure. Great inputs there, Nishant. So Girish and Vipin, you both talked about personalization. So my next question is directed to both of you, starting with Girish. Girish, by learning about each individual customer, their behaviors and their needs, you can deliver customized and contextual experiences. However, this is easier said than done, right? So how can IT leaders ensure complete tracking of the customer profile and journey, enabling smarter decisions and offering personalized customer experiences?
Perfect. I think you have hit the nail on the head. It's easier said than done, and we have been trying to do that. One challenge, I mean, like I said, the robustness of the CRM is a given. I mean, you need to have a very robust CRM, and that's what we have implemented. But the challenge where we are facing now is the conversational, and I think Mr. Krishnan brought that point. Integration is the key, and the conversational platforms, how well do they integrate with my CRM and also with the customer experience tools? I mean, that's one of the challenges, and if we are able to balance that, then I think we would be able to make it more meaningful for the end customer. I think that's the first part. The second part is every tool is coming with its AIML functionality, and I think Mr. Bhatt said that he has a very robust AIML strategy in place, and I think that's a learning for me, because everybody comes with their AIML now. My conversational platform says I have an AIML. My Salesforce says I have an Einstein. I already have subscribed to Azure, which has AIML. Now, how do I marry all these? And I am also getting data from the social media, which is also bringing its own set of insights. So how do I marry all this and give that and what is relevant and give that personalized experience? So not there completely yet, but we have started on this journey, and we have started speaking to partners and try to understand how do we fit in this entire ecosystem and deliver this. And I'll tell you the bigger challenge is, I mean, if you read the Gartner reports, we started with websites, then we came to apps, then we came to NPS platforms and the AR/VR handsets and all this, and now this is all moving to multimodal, multi-experience. Now it's only increasing the complexity. So how do we really crack it? I mean, that's something where insights or suggestions would be most welcome. But exciting, at the same time, to be in this area.
Wonderful. Sure. I'm sure Nishant would have answers to your questions, Mr. Girish. But Mr. Krishnan, you were raising your hand. Do you have a point to make here, or should I move to Mr. Vipin?
Yes, just a brief mention. I got the point about being able to track conversations. Now, last year, when the pandemic hit, we simply had to adopt whatever was available, right? WhatsApp video, Hangout, Zoom, whatever. But now we have recently rolled out cloud-based audio and video, which is completely central and which is now adopted by a central team as well as our store teams. With the result that there is not only a uniform technical experience, but all calls are recorded. And so therefore sentiment analysis and which call is clearly superlative, which call seems to have aspects that deserve improvement. We are able to employ technology on top of that. We have started that journey, but the infrastructure is in place. I just wanted to mention
No,
that.
definitely. Great work there, Mr. Krishnan. Mr. Vipin, how are you bringing about hyper personalization for your customers?
So I think to me, I feel there are two major again elements in this journey. I think that needs to be there. One, I think the entire capturing piece, right? So I think first of all, as an IT leader or as IT leaders, I think we should at least have an aspiration that we have a zero data loss policy in the organization, right? Now, and there are so many touch points, and the esteemed panelists have talked about, the voice, the video, the apps and all that. How do we make sure that all the data is getting captured, right? And there's no loss of data that is happening there. So that's point number one. And a certain nuance of this data capturing, I would say, is that, and especially in retail, how do you capture? See, online data capturing has been there for so many years, right? Offline data capturing also a lot of retailers have started, right? But how do you really make sure that you match that data, right? So how do you track a consumer that who has your app and then has come to the store but has not revealed itself as a loyal customer, right? Or has not revealed that he has the app. So how do I track that customer? How do I track or get analysis of the consumers who are showing up in my store but really not announced? I don't have the data. They refuse to give their phone numbers and all that. Obviously, I can't reach out to them because they have not given me their information. But at least whatever analytics can I do? How can I do that analytics, right? Using more advanced technologies like beacons and Meraki devices, or the vision analytics kind of technologies that are out there. So I think that also, as a leader, I think as we need to progress that the organization's journey into that, right? Online to offline, and then how do we make it phygital or whatever the word we may want to give, but how do then we match the online and the offline data? I think that's a certain nuance in the data capturing. And then I think the second point, which I think other panelists also have also touched upon, is that how do you then create that infrastructure, right? As CIO, I can ensure that all the data is getting captured, and then I have an infrastructure and the platforms that are scalable and also evolves with my organization maturity, right? So today, if I don't have anything, I do take a first step of creating a data lake. Then I create, all the, BIs and standard hygiene stuff. And then I create more like, enterprise level entities in terms of customer masters and store masters, and then make it very enterprise wide. That actually, that if there is a problem with inventory, then I know what is the impact on the consumer, right? Or if I have an impact on inventory or the consumer, what is the impact on the sales, right? So all that, how do I make that platforms talk to each other and then very scalable and evolve with my organization maturity as well. And I think already the panelists have already talked about like having a proper AIML strategy, because again, these seem very, as Girish was talking about, that every system will have their own AIML. But how do, as an organization, I bring that integration saying, boss, if inventory is a problem, then how customer gets impacted? How do that and make it very organization specific, because off-the-shelf models are very available, but how can I make it organization specific and then have the right platforms to be able to deliver that actionable insight to the right folk at the right time? So, for example, if you are in the store and you've already bought a coffee, but I want to nudge you and for a second service or for a food item or a merchandise item because you've been sitting there in the restaurant for 45 minutes. How do I give that actionable insight to you directly or to my store person that, okay, Yash is here and he likes this, he bought this in the past, why don't you please offer a second service to them? So how do I make that? So I think that whole cycle of capturing data, analyzing it, integrating it, and then actionably to the frontline worker, I think that's something, if we can create those platforms, I think that will create a lot of value for the organization.
Great. So Nishant, there are lots of components to this, entire piece of personalization, and the CIO seems to have just embarked on this journey.
Yeah.
What do you feel is the best approach to reaching there?
Yeah. So essentially, the platforms selection, right? Now some of the bit has already been done. Some are to take up that journey. The key would be what's could be the platform that would give the best what they need. Scalability, selecting the provider who is who is a well-defined, well-established, well-experienced provider in this domain, which should give this platform to them, and then also maintain and manage the complete life cycle. Not to, I should not forget to mention about the service operations, right? Now, even if you go ahead and select a provider, you also need to be cognizant of the fact that there could be change requests that will coming under your way, because the journey is changing, right? Let's say if your life cycle spans to next 5 years, then there could be enough many change requests which will be driven by the end customer, and which service provider would be able to implement this change very quickly to bring them speed to the market, and get them going, and always be in an advanced mode. So that is what CIOs have to look forward. Get a proper evaluation done. AI/ML is something which is which is a buzzing thing right now. All the platforms have been powered by AI/ML in some or the other way. Conversational AIs bring it more contextual information to the transaction, and even bring that hyper care that is being desired for every customer, and that's what makes more sales, right, and more in a proactive way that has to happen. So the reactive sales has to be turned to proactive, and that's where the platform selection, the provider selection, everything matters, and that's what we need to CIOs need to worry about, and that they need to carefully opt for the same.
Sure. I hope that answers some of your questions. Great. Coming back to Mr. Bhatt now again. Mr. Bhatt, there are now multiple communication channels available for an organization to communicate with its customers and vice versa. And we talked about this omni-channel approach in our earlier question as well. How do you prefer to use, and blend these channels of voice, email, or SMS for a broader omni-channel communication experience for your customers?
Yep, I think it is a subset of the broader personalization which we are talking about, because in in our world also we need to remember the customer profile. We need to understand the customer profile much better. For example, what are the customer preferences? And that includes their food, that includes the aisle seat versus window seat, that includes everything. That also includes that how they want to get communicated also. So this also getting driven by them, and which medium they want to get communicated to, because many times people don't probably prefer SMS. They won't probably get WhatsApp. They want to get or the through other media. So I think it is a lot driven by them. But from our perspective, we look at the entire value chain and identify those customer touch points. Where are the opportunities for us to communicate back to the customer? Particularly, it becomes important when there is disruption. Say airlines, they have a lot of disruptions happen, a lot of unplanned things happen. So in that situation, how do you communicate back to the customer? I think those are some of the inputs which really drive. Same thing if it is post-flight, there's a baggage mishandled or misplaced or lost. How do you communicate at that time? And how do you make sure that even though the baggage has been sent by the next flight, but how does the customer know instead of calling to the call center and waiting for 15 minutes and getting frustrated? I think those are the nuances which we keep in mind while we really communicate to the customer, while keeping again the guiding principles of personalization, guiding principles of experience, which we have, and also making sure that whatever loyalty programs we have, or loyalty customer tiers we have, they are being serviced based on that.
Sure. Great. Mr. Krishnan, accustomed to channel and device hopping, consumers now expect seamless omni-channel services. I was just reading a research which said 75% of people expect similar experiences while engaging with brands, be it through social media, mobile apps, or while interacting with an actual person. How can one drive the same level of experience even though the channel may be different?
See, across digital channels, since the technology is driving it, it's possible to ensure a certain level of uniformity, right? But in our business, that omni interaction, and especially the in-person interaction in the store, is really the, if I may call it, the game changer in many, many respects, right? What we have done, therefore, is to make the same information available to our retail colleague on the CRM. So it took us several iterations, but you have actually designed a screen that our colleague can comprehend without losing eye contact, right? And we have also integrated next best action recommendations into it now. So that is one way in which our colleague can, in a few seconds of glancing at the screen, know what have been the recent interactions. So for example, you could walk into a jewelry store or Tanishq store, and if let's say a month or two back, you have just acquired a new pair of progressive spectacles, you may just find my jewelry colleague courteously inquiring whether your spectacles are fine, right? It could be an extremely pleasant surprise for many folks, and we are getting there, right? And so therefore, it's omni-channel across our business divisions as well, because many of our customers are actually patronizing many of our brands and products. So all these are opportunities for which the architecture, frankly, the solutions are available today, right? But being able to put contextual intelligence on top and be able to say the right thing at the right time. The customer may have an unresolved complaint, and that could be made visible. And so the first conversation could be, is it resolved, or should I spend a few minutes trying to help you? So the first conversation may not even be about the product and about the sale. It could be about something else. So really speaking, the hub, which is the customer profile, the CRM, and all the recent engagements, has to be made available at every touch point, whether it's a technology parsing it or a colleague seeking to read it without losing eye contact.
Sure.
That's really the point. What we have done is to maintain customer analytics in the customer profile and the data warehouse itself, while we use point solutions' own MLA capabilities in specific contexts. So for example, the call analyzer, without the specific customer's identity, it'd be able to tell whether this call was a good one or maybe needs improvement with a certain probability. Merchandising solutions need not necessarily know the customer. They just need to know what is being sold. But customer analytics, we have chosen to house it completely separately.
Wonderful. So Nishant, the more channels there are, the more complex it gets, right?
Yeah.
So what's the way forward for a CIO?
Unfortunately, you can't get rid of reducing channels. You can only add it. So the complexity is like ever increasing. But the good news is, like, there are players, there are providers, even like Tata Communications. We add on these capabilities into our current service portfolios. We launched secure connected digital experience recently, on which we ensure that even if we are adding channels, it will be properly implemented by actually picking up the exact workflow from the enterprises whom we intend to deploy, and then would be able to service them over time, and actually till the entire life cycle of it. As I said, right, a service provider capability, and if it's more like a managed end to end, then entire components of the solution has to be evaluated, because now it's more like a network driven as well, because I mean these solutions can easily fail if you don't have a proper network being set up, which can handle this kind of payloads and workloads. So essentially, provider which has control on network, provider which has control on the application, provider which has control on the delivery, and then the assurance, everything with a complete visibility, and with the provision of providing dashboards, what's happening actually with the solution to the CIOs. All these things would form an integrated parameters which has to be analyzed while and select a technology, and then the provider who will implement and assure you for the entire life cycle, right? And this will happen in sales vertical, like proactive sales, a similar proactive service, right? And so given an example, like starting from, let's say, a user who is missing a flight, or a flight has been rescheduled, he can be given a proactive information from the airlines stating that, look, the flight has been rescheduled, and I have booked your room in hotel Hotel Taj. You can go and rest out there till we'll onboard you on the next flight. So now this everything comes only when you have an integrated solution, and the tie-ups, even it can be with an external enterprise or maybe your partner, right? So let's say Vistara partnered with Hotel Taj to give this facility and this feature. Look how proactive it has become. and this could be possible when you have this a solution implemented by players like Tata Communications.
Sure, sure. Great.
Yeah, yes, sure. If I can, since we have the benefit of Nishant on the call, and it just triggered to me. So, Nishant, I mean, through these different channels, and I don't, maybe we can discuss it later, but how do I provide service differentiation? So, I have a affordable segment, I have a premium segment, I have a luxury segment.
Yeah.
So, how do I provide a service differentiation through the digital channels? I mean, I think that's again a piece that we would like to tackle. And do we have different channels? And today, I think like most of the panelists said, we don't choose a channel. The customer chooses the channel.
Yeah.
If he decides to converse with us over WhatsApp, we have to do it.
Yeah.
Now, if that's the channel, then how do I differentiate my service across these two channels? I think that's one piece also which we would like to address.
You want to address it right now, Nishant, or do you want to take
I mean, later also.
Just a brief. Just a brief on that. So when we create a business workflow to implement this solution for you, Girish, what we will also understand in the design workshop that what could be the potential identifiers, unique identifiers for each segment of yours, right? And based on these identifiers, we will identify which segment of the customer this existing customer will belong to, and accordingly route to the preferred customer experience agent or whomsoever you want to this customer of yours to talk to. So we have a facility, we have features onto our platforms, contact center platforms, CX platforms, what we call, which can give a preferential and differential treatment basis how we identify them correctly with some identification tags.
Okay, sure.
Cool. Coming back to Mr. Gupta, so customers increasingly want digital, but do you feel they also demand intuitive self-service support options available on the channels that they prefer to use? Because do you think technology can play a role in resolving queries quickly and easily by enabling customers to engage through any channel they choose?
Yeah, see, I'm a firm believer in general, like, digital transformation has to have a human component as well, right? So while we obviously embarking on these programs, the human factor also has to be retained, because that will be a key component and will create key differentiation, against competitors and, other brands. So I think being said that, when it comes to self-service, I again feel there are three components to this self-service and how digital can play a role. One is obviously capturing the customer request, and then the second is how do you solve it quickly, and then you go back to the consumer that okay, this has been resolved and all is good and all that. I feel in my experience, they actually the number one and number three are not a problem. I think you can actually create, like I think other esteemed panelists also talk about chatbots and conversational commerce, and you can even in you can see in the food tech apps are also, right, a lot of the it's very easy that you can just click a button and you can have a chat and all that. So I think capturing consumer complaints and getting back to the consumer, the platforms are not a problem. I think the biggest challenge is how do you bring that change management internally to be able to do that, to be able to resolve the query quickly. And I'll take a small example, just a couple of minutes. One of the major problems in the food tech area is that your payment has been deducted, but your the actual order has not been reached to the store, because it's a very distributed, architecture of the store architecture that is there. So then, if the refund has to happen, and especially in the franchisee model, because these payments are happening centrally, and now whereas franchisee one might say, well, I've not seen the payment, how can I even refund it, right? So how do you then make sure that the right workflow systems are there, the right information is available to the right stakeholder at the right time, so that they can take the right decision that whether it needs to be refunded or not refunded, and how and then enable the call center or that platform from where the query came to be able to get back to the consumer, right? So I think the role of IT in this is to make sure the change management, the data availability, and the right workflow system with appropriate accountabilities which are tracked, I think will be the key to make sure that this happens.
Okay. So Nishant, do you echo Mr. Gupta's sentiments there?
Absolutely.
I mean, do you agree to his approach? What do you feel can lead to queries being resolved quickly and easily?
Oh, absolutely. I completely agree. I echo what Vipin has said. Everything has to be staged and tied together. At the same time, we need to ensure that whatsoever technology we use gives that experience, not compromising on any aspect, especially security. So, the workflows has to be defined, designed, and implemented in such ways so that it gives the desired output, right? And of course, these workflows would come as a result of inside maybe marketing team or inside business team, whatever they want to come up with, and I believe all the technology. And since it's based on technology, it can always be implemented without any problems, any part of the world, anywhere across the world. So there's no limits, no boundaries, nothing, except for our thoughts, right? Whatever we can think, it can be implemented. So that's about it.
Sure. Moving on, Mr. Bhatt, when choosing to work with a particular technology partner, what are the main things that you look for, for that partner to gain your confidence as a credible digital infrastructure provider?
See, many things, obviously, they need to have a good technology depth, particularly with the emerging technologies. We have seen Industry 4.0, you name it, and it is quite spread out. It's not only cloud, it is analytics, it is, AI, whatever. So I think that is the first thing we look at. Second is who has really experience in using these technologies for business outcomes. Because many times, people have great products, but they don't know how to configure it, how to use it. And specifically, if we have to pick up, obviously, we have to look in the airlines domain, aviation domain, because they're very specialized and very heterogeneous. I would say third thing is about the strategic view. How are they looking at us? How are they looking at their portfolio? Is it a short term? Is it going to be our long-term partner? I think those are few of the things which you look at. I'm not talking about effective governance anyway. That is given that when you are picking up a partner, you need to have access to the top management there, so that if there are issues, you can sort it out. But it is more about how they can be our trusted partner for making us successful, while they have a good command on the technology solutions for businesses. That will be my summary.
So Nishant, do you think Tata Communication ticks all those boxes? And what digital capabilities do you offer to ensure that CIOs have a smooth and seamless CX journey?
No, of course. So that's a very great point what Vinod has brought up, and that's what we also try to live up to our customer expectations in pre-sales as well as post-sales journeys. Right, getting what customer would want, fitting into the right bill, more from a strategic advisors, right? So strategic advisors, what we should give, like this can be done this way, but if you could do this other way around, it will be much more beneficial. So those kind of inputs definitely come from us, and then serving the customer till the entire life cycle, whatever is being committed and agreed. So that's our primary agenda, and that's how we've been able to serve most of the Tata companies as well as companies outside Tata. So that's on it. Bringing latest technologies, innovations, and quickly bringing it, right. So that's the key. And OEM can support it. So we are not the OEMs, but we are the enablers of the technologies given by certain OEMs, and we are the deployment partners, the service assurance partners of these technologies to our customers. So an OEM can bring the capability. I would ensure how quickly I can bring it to my end customers, and then service them until the entire contract or till the entire life cycle. So that's what our aim should be. Consulting, right? Consulting, and before that pre-sale stage, consulting, regulatory aspects. That also changes country to country and geography to geography. So all those consideration goes into our designs, our consultancies, and that's what we are known for, and that's how we've been able to capture the market and able to serve the customer.
Sure, Nishant. So, gentlemen, we've had an amazing discussion, but unfortunately, we are coming to the end of this session. So, my final question to Mr. Krishnan and Girish before we wrap this session up, starting with you, Mr. Krishnan. See, we've seen collaboration picking up like anything in the last year and a half. But collaboration doesn't only mean collaborating with your partners or customers. It's also includes collaborating with your internal workforce, your employees. What, according to you, is the best strategy when it comes to collaboration, and how can CIOs implement, a future-proof, robust, seamless collaboration solution?
I think collaboration, first of all, is people, right? The fact is, many organizations who are looking at work from home are now calling folks back, right, within the space of 12 months. So I think that itself goes to show that in-person conversations are probably crucial for certain kinds of insights, certain kinds of decisions, right? Having said that, again, the collaboration technologies have been around for decades, right? Starting with, I think Lotus Notes was the first significant one, and we all know how old it is, right? And today, there are any number of tools on our phones. I mean, just to name one technology, take Slack, for example, a perfect companion for an agile team. And BPM, RPA, I mean, every form of collaboration automation, the tools are there. So long as the context is identified, you have a solution, frankly. It's the technology side is a no-brainer in that area. It's evolved to that level.
Okay. Mr. Girish, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, again, we are a Tata Communications customer over here for the Office 365 suite, and so that has brought in a lot of. I mean, Microsoft has come up with that brilliant stack, which makes it very easy for you to have the data availability, and also how do you, with using Teams, how do you actually communicate and collaborate and share information. But one fundamental change, I think, which has now come in, is the focus has now shifted from just storing data to disseminate information to actually making it available for people to work together on it and maybe drive business outcomes or even drive innovations. And that's why we have gone for a tool like Power Apps, which actually helps them use that data. And we also have, so we have Power BI, we have Power Apps, and how do, I mean, and Microsoft has made it pretty seamless. Everything is interlinkable. Everything is available in Teams. People collaborate, get onto your dashboard, find something which needs to be done, get onto Power Apps. It's limited to a few people, the few people that you have identified. But I think that's the way going ahead. So the biggest hindrance I see over there is the fluency, tech fluency of the business teams. I think that's the challenge that we need to address, because we can have all the tools. Ultimately, it's the people who need to use it, and how do we enable that? I think that's the area to target if we have to make use of it.
Sure. Nishant, final thoughts from your end?
Yeah, absolutely, bang on thoughts there. Collaboration is something that we would need to implement to improve the collaboration between employees, to improve the workforce productivity, and just not only for customer or partner interaction. I would say it is more like, or first it starts with employee interactions, right? Microsoft, Cisco, ever since this Teams collaboration thing started, right? It started with Slack, actually. So the persistent team spaces, persistent, chat spaces. It ensures that you have all the information right from the inception of the project or of any topic being made available to all the stakeholders of that project. So that was the whole idea. And then eventually the way how it is working out is it might replace the traditional email system what we use, right? Instead of using email, people just use the persistent team spaces to communicate, to collaborate, and be any technology you use, Microsoft, Cisco, Slack, a lot many others as well. So these are these were very effective, and these are very effective even in the current state. And that's how this entire continuous working, right? You be at office and now be at home, the information flow is happening. The information is available. The tools ensure that we even this virtual meetings are happening right now. We ensure that that meeting is fruitful because you have the right experience into that meeting because of the product and service and the network, whatever is being plugged into the entire suite. So yes, UC Unified Communications was the real backbone which really helped in improving the productivity, efficiency of the user. Our intern efficiency was improved, and the same is being used even for the partner communication or even for the customer communication. So ease of use, right? How quickly you can adopt. People can really look at how quickly I can schedule a meeting, how quickly I can join. All these are the experiences that's been offered by the latest communication or collaboration platforms, and that's how it will keep on evolving, forever. So we have more and more features getting added, very similar to the other topic what we discussed, like customer experience journeys, and now we are on the employee experience journey. It's all like ever evolving services that will
Sure.
continue and will add more and more into our portfolios.
Great. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of this very insightful and interesting session. To sum up the discussion, almost every successful company recognizes that it is in the business of customer experience. Many businesses understand that it's no longer enough to compete on products and services. How a company delivers for its customers is beginning to be as important as what it delivers. Customers not only increasingly dictate the rules, but also expect high levels of satisfaction from the savviest practitioners and the sleepiest industry participants alike. Companies that work to master this dynamic become superior competitors. Thank you once again, panelists, for sharing those wonderful insights. And thank you, attendees, for watching this session. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thank you.